Hello, everyone, and welcome to the quarterfinals of the StarCityGames.com Players Championship here from the Star City Game Center in Roanoke, Virginia. Brad Nelson with Green Black Aggro is on your left. He's your number 1 overall seed right now in day 2 of competition against Jacob Baugh on your right, the number 8 overall seed with Naya Aetherworks. For Jacob, it's a basic forest and then tune with Ether. He will, of course, search up a basic land and start the game off with 2 energies. He searches up a basic mountain. For Nelson, he started things off with a Hissing Quagmire. And Nelson's deck is a real metagame choice here this weekend. We saw Adam Snook 2 weekends ago at the Atlanta Invitational take a very aggressive green-black aggro deck to the semifinals of that tournament. It was actually upended by Jacob Baugh, who went on to win that tournament. And now for the green-black aggro fans out there, looking to maybe get a little revenge against Naya Aetherworks.
And I think Nelson's strategy this weekend is susceptible to decks that are a lot bigger on the battlefield about as early on in the game, most notably Green-Black Delirium, and essentially unrepresented in the field this weekend.
Nelson will play a Blooming Marsh and a Smuggler's Copter as we head back over to Jacob Baugh. We know he's got a mountain in hand from the Attune with Ether. There is a mountain, and Baugh will pass the turn back over to Nelson. Nelson will untap and draw. And we'll see what the 2014 Players Champion has for his 3rd turn of the game.
Now we see the cat and mouse game with Smuggler's Copter here, assuming Nelson has a play to make. Does Nelson activate the Smuggler's Copter and risk the Harness Lightning, or out of respect does he simply play a threat and pass the turn? Guess we'll never know.
Yeah. Doesn't appear as though he's got much going on. Just going to play Blooming Marsh, pass that turn back over to Baugh. See what Jacob puts together here for his 3rd turn of the game. Picked up a copy of Game Trail. Also has a hub in hand. It looks like he's actually got quite a few lands in hand at this stage. And not really making a lot of energy, so he's just going to play the Game Trail. And on the battlefield tapped, we head back over to Nelson. Nelson, you have to imagine a little worried about a card like Harness Lightning, something that Baugh has many copies of in his main deck.
And Nelson 3 main deck copies of Blossoming Defense, so if he has one of those, he can be maybe slow play his threats a little bit and try to play over the top of removal spells. On the other hand, he does not have all the time in the world. Not only is Aetherworks more of a threat, but just Baugh being able to play Planeswalkers on the stable board, getting to Ishkana with Delirium. So if Nelson has spots where he can be a little bit careful, not playing the removal spells or set up turns with Blossoming Defense, he'll take them. But on the balance, he still needs to err on the side of attacking.
Nelson going to think this turn over quite a bit. Makes a lot of sense to me. But don't have a great look at what Brad is working with right now. I mean, very much in the tank, though.
Well, this has got to be a consideration over Harness Lightning.
Yeah.
And that's really the only interaction that Baugh can have in this kind of spot. And what's the implications of his Smuggler's Copter dying? What's the implications of Baugh going from 2 to 5 energy?
There's a forest. What do we have here? Cletus. Trader get. Okay. He will use that to crew the copter, and now Nelson would like to attack. Does Baugh have the Harness Lightning? Again, 4 copies in his main deck here. Nelson hoping he's clear for takeoff. We'll see. He is. There will be an attack and now a trigger. Copter will allow Nelson to draw and discard. And he does have a copy of Virtuous Gearhawk in hand, so some things for Nelson to work towards.
One of the big payoffs for the deck. 4 X copies. Really good in matchups where the battlefield's likely to get clawed and stats matter, and also really powerful in matchups that are just a straight race. And this matchup has elements of both.
Sometimes we see Nelson play some games rather quickly, But in situations like this where he's making a deep tournament run, he really slows down his pace of play.
It's kind of funny. We were talking before he went on here, and he's like, if I play against Baugh, if I play against these Aetherworks decks, I don't really have a lot of decisions. I just kind of just do my thing.
Mm-hmm.
Does not appear to be the case.
Yeah.
Brad Nelson is not playing like a person with no decisions right now.
He's going to discard an Involving Wilds. 3 damage will come across. Ball's going to fall down to 17. And now Jacob will play Harness Lightning. Okay, this is just to gain energy. Okay,
Yeah.
I see the plan here. It's just to gain energy. So this has got to be Hub plus Marvel. Yep, Energy 6, Marvel 1.
Although for Baugh, does not appear that he has the ability to easily re-up on this Aetherworks Marvel. So looks like we're just going to be spinning once here. Lot riding on this hit.
Appears to be somewhat all in. Well, that was easy.
That was fun.
Yeah. That was super, super tough. Over to Nelson, he will untap. He'll show his hand, and he'll draw a card. Traverse. 2 Blossoming Defense. Another copy of Cletus.
Okay.
And a Gearhulk. Well, how bad can it be?
Well, the bad thing is Cletus, you use that to turn on the copter. You loot away the worst card. Blossoming Defense twice for nothing. Fail to find with Traverse. That's what I came up with off the top of my head. I don't know. Maybe it's worse than that. We'll find out. Find out in a moment.
Yes, soon enough.
That's
That's just off the top of your head.
That's off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Maybe there's more creative lines somewhere.
That's what Jacob's trying to figure out.
Try to find lane number 5 to gear Hulk up the Emerald Coal or whatever.
He's going to crew the copter and serve in with the copter. No, Smuggler's Copter. Why? No. You're going to die. A swamp.
Yeah, discard the Gear Hulk, I guess. And then leave him with Cletus in a swamp.
Yeah, I think that's what I'd like.
It looks right to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. Who knows? Who's to say?
How? Traverse.
Delirium enabled.
It's all on now.
Yep.
Just missed. Just missed. Blossoming Defense times 2. You can go ahead and throw those in the graveyard.
Okay. All right. That makes me feel good. Baugh and I found about the same line.
You could just be out there.
Yep.
You could be out there doing this. Nelson will now draw a card.
I don't take my turns all that well, but other people's turns?
You're good at those?
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Then Emrakul is the perfect card for you.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't want to play anymore either. Totally understand, Brad.
Okay.
Another one for Emrakul.
Yeah.
Chalk it up.
Another dub.
Jacob Baugh will win game 1 here over Brad Nelson. Now Aetherworks up a game here over Green-Black Aggro. We'll go to the sideboards here, and Nelson does have tools, like these 2 Fleetwheel Cruisers, a Gnarlwood Dryad, a Deadweight, 3 Natural State, 2 Sky Sovereign, Council Flagship, Liliana Last Hope, Flame Tendrils, and 4 Transgress the Mind. I mean, I see 6.
So I would say that I see 7. I think 4 copies of Transgress the Mind, 2 Fleetwheel Cruisers, and 1 Gnarlwood Dryad. All very important. The Transgress is a great disruption here, and both the Gnarlwood Dryad and the 2 Fleetwheel Cruisers speed up Nelson's deck considerably, and that's all he wants. He wants to have a fast clock with a little bit of disruption.
Other side of things here for Jacob Baugh, 2 Tireless Tracker, a World Breaker, a Clip Wings, a Nissa, Vital Force, a Fragmentize, 4 Galvanic Bombardment, 2 Kozilek's Return, an Ishkana Graph Widow, a Sigarda Heron's Grace, and an Ulamog of the Ceaseless Hunger.
So 4 copies of Galvanic Bombardment are easy includes here, slow the game down a little bit. Beyond that, does he want an extra Ishkana? I could buy that. Is Sigarda well sized for the matchup? Does he think it's going to be maybe a little bit of a slower grind and goes a tireless tracker? There are some other options here. I think the 4 copies of Galvanic Bombardment, maybe the 2 copies of Kozilek's Return, those are a little bit shakier though, and maybe some of the bullet creatures as more redundancy or extra tutor targets.
Well, we will take a look at game number 2 here in just a moment as these players get ready to sideboard, but it's time to talk about some of our favorite stuff, which is StarCityGames.com Game Night, the very popular promotion, one of Patrick's very favorites, and I know you're going to keep the Fintuition pin that's on your jacket.
Definitely coming home with me. You can head over to go.starcitygames.com/game night, find out more information about Game Night. Every month we make new kits with pins and tokens we send to the stores that are signed up for Game Night, and then stores can run Game Night however they want. Any format, just get players in the store on a regular basis for some fun and friendly magic. This is the December kit. If you're not fortunate enough to me to just be able to take the pin home, you can find the local store closest to you that's running Game Night and try to get this. And we have the next couple kits coming down the pipeline as well, with Squeaky Cheeky Acorn Breaker in January, and then in February, Corgi Firewalker. Again, go to StarCityGames.com/Game Night. Find the Game Night closest to you. Stores, if you want to get signed up for Game Night, contact your Star City Games in-store play representative.
Game number 2 about to be underway here between Jacob Baugh and Brad Nelson. For Jacob Baugh, it's been a great year for the 27-year-old from Waterloo, Illinois. 11 open top 8s, 2 open wins. An invitational top 8 and win 2 weekends ago in Atlanta, which is how he qualified for this tournament. Great record over the course of 2016. A lot of hard work put in. For Legacy, he played Lands. For Modern, he played Dredge, a deck that he is very, very familiar with. And now Standard, a deck that I'm sure is near and dear to his heart in Naya Aetherworks, qualified him for this tournament, qualified him for his first Pro Tour, and might win him this Players' Championship.
Yep, he was on pace to qualify for the Players' Championship anyway, towards the back end of the Invitational, but did himself a solid and won the whole thing. Now making a deep run in the Players' Championship, as you mentioned, qualified for his first Pro Tour coming up. Really a banner year here in 2016 for Jacob Baugh.
It's good to see all the hard work paying off for him, that's for sure. We'll see if he's going to be able to get another win here against Brad Nelson to knock, I think, a lot of people's favorite in regards to who they picked to win this tournament out of the tournament. Would be a bit of an upset there.
Mm-hmm.
But Nelson's got tools for the matchup.
He does. Though it is challenging to interact at times. We can go back and run the tape there. How did Baugh get to 6 energy? He played a 1-mana spell. Pretty hard to interact with those. A 2-mana spell. Pretty hard to interact with those. A land. Essentially impossible to interact with those. And then he casts his card. So it can be challenging even if you're well set up.
So these players will get ready here. I can tell you on our backup match, which I'm a little surprised about, they're already in game 3.
That is pretty fast.
Between Caleb Shear and Jeff Hoagland. And, I mean, they're not the slowest of players, but in game 3 in that matchup already is pretty telling.
Well, some Aetherworks Marvel games are relatively fast, as we just saw.
They can be.
They can be.
Baugh with 4 copies of Emrakul in his deck, 4 copies, obviously, of Aetherworks Marvel, ways to make energy. He's got the main deck Sigarda again for the mirror, 3 Ishkana, the 4th one in the board, 3 Chandra, 3 Nahiri. So it gives you an idea of the tools that he is working with. We've seen players go to stuff like Worldbreaker and Ulamog, things of that nature. Jacob not really in favor of those cards, at least in his main deck.
And I think you can even say that Sigarda is beyond just winning the mirror match. Very good at stopping Emrakul, of course, but it's also just a quality creature. The Magic, they print a lot of 4, 5, 6-mana creatures that aren't necessarily good enough for Tier 1, but are plenty good when they're on the battlefield.
It's very true.
And then that card did a lot of work in Baugh's match against Jerry Thompson earlier, just as a large blocker that could generate more blockers. It is a metagame bullet, but also not the worst thing to just naturally draw and cast.
For sure. I just kind of figured these standard matches take a little bit longer, This format can be slow and plodding at times. But with the lack of black-green delirium here, maybe that won't be the case. Nelson will send his hand back. Gonna look at 6. For Baugh, he's gonna keep his 7. Nelson will shuffle up. He'll take a look at 6. We'll learn more about the inaugural Players' Champion, the 30-year-old who currently resides in Roanoke, Virginia, with 9 open top 8s, 2 open wins, most recently in Knoxville a few weeks ago. Invitational top eights, 3. Wins, 1. We saw him win in Indianapolis a few years ago. Season 3 points leader is how he qualified for this tournament. And though he didn't play a ton in the SCG Tour, when he did, he was obviously doing very well because he's quite the gamer. Legacy deck was Sneak and Show, which he 3-0'd with that. Death Shadow Aggro is a deck he's been playing for a long time in Modern. And then Green-Black Aggro, his weapon of choice here in Standard. It's gotten him to the quarterfinals of this tournament, a place he is very familiar with in the Players' Championship. We'll see if it'll get him back to the semifinals. He will keep, and now he will scry.
That 110-43 record is absurd.
Pretty good.
So that's clocking in about a 70% win rate.
Yeah, pretty good. He'll start for the Hissing Quagmire. A forest here for Baugh, and now there's a Vessel of Nascency. We'll go back over to Nelson, see if he's got a 2-drop to get some aggression going here. Grim Flayer, as we saw a couple weekends ago, might be the best 2 that he can play, and he's got Smuggler's Copter, which is not too bad either.
Well, the problem is on a mulligan, he's more likely to be in a spot where he can't follow up with the creature next turn. It is really bad news if Nelson next turn plays a land and says go.
Game Trail. Revealing a forest to make it untapped. And now we'll head back over to Nelson. Again, Baugh with 4 copies of Harness Lightning in his deck, so it's something that Nelson has to consider given the Copter.
I think at this point, Nelson's probably loath to play around the Harness Lightning. 1, he's got to get something going. And 2, Baugh can just activate the Vessel of Nascency anyway.
Well, here's a Transgress. Harness Lightning was in hand. Same with Attune. Tireless Tracker, Kozilek's Return, Chandra, Torch of Defiance, and a Forest. That's the hand for Jacob Baugh, as Nelson will record the contents.
Absent of any other information, this feels like Tireless Tracker is the most likely card to be removed from this hand. He can't touch the cheap stuff. The Chandra is pretty easy to answer via Smuggler's Copter, and the Kozilek's Return doesn't really line up the right way right now. Also, if the game is kind of going to be this slow, grindier affair, Tireless Tracker just might be the most objectively powerful card in the hand regardless. But a lot of this depends on what else is going on in Nelson's hand, of course.
Nelson, a lot to think about here. Harness Lightning obviously is going to throw a wrench in some things. Kozilek's Return can be good in certain spots. Tireless Tracker, with maybe the game starting to shape up a little bit slowly here for Brad, could be pretty powerful. And it looks like he's going to take the creature.
Again, very much contingent on the cards in Nelson's hand, but without special information, Tireless Tracker stood out to me as the most dangerous card.
Almost a whiff there by Baugh with the Vessel, but the last card is a hit in Sigarda. So that'll go to Jacob's hand, and now Jacob will untap. We know he's got a land drop to make in a forest, and he also has a Vessel of Nascency, so he has an Attune with Ether, so he'll draw a card. Another copy of Sigarda has been found, so he's putting a premium on that flyer in this matchup.
I was pretty excited about him drawing the first copy. The second copy, not so much. He's in somewhat of an awkward spot with this Attune, because if he gets a Plains, then he does not have double red for Chandra, and if he gets a Mountain for the Chandra, he doesn't have white mana for Sigarda.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing because of the Smuggler's Copter, Baugh is not really that interested in Chandra or setting that play up right now. So I would anticipate he's getting a Plains here, but I am not positive. And I think he just thumbed past it.
Well, he'll go with it now.
The way this game is looking right now, I think casting Sigarda on time is probably more important for Baugh than casting Chandra on time.
Well, we do have an update here for you. In our backup match, we all picked against him in Caleb Shear, and we were all wrong. Caleb takes care of Jeff Hoagland 2-1. So, Team Aetherworks will be moving on to the semifinals. Congratulations to Caleb on his win, and congratulations to Jeff on a very healthy tournament here this weekend, but Shear was able to get the job done past all those counterspells.
And pretty fast.
Yeah. It's the power of Marvel. Caleb Shearer will play the winner of this match a little bit later today. Nelson will play a Forest. Gonna activate Hissing Quagmire crew. This is Brad kind of, I think, waving the white flag on this copter and saying, I just need to get this part of the game over with.
Yep.
Yep, Harness Lightning will take care of that.
And I think he had a Fleet Wheel Cruiser in hand, but he certainly does not want to cast that into the Harness.
Yep. That one's going to be a little more important, I think.
And because he's a little bit light on creatures right now, the vehicles are on diminishing returns. So it makes a lot of sense there to trade. Also, that way you can potentially have Fleet Wheel Cruiser line up against Sigarda, which is much better than having your Smuggler's Copter line up against Sigarda.
Well, Hubble's a good draw. That makes this real easy. That's the source of red mana that he needed. Get an energy, use the energy, play the Chandra.
I mean, this play, it's nice for him to draw the hub, and it looks good. But this is not great against a Fleet Wheel Cruiser next turn if Nelson has it.
Servant of the Conduit is the reveal. Chandra will deal 2. We'll head back over to Nelson. And if Nelson does have the Cruiser, this is a great spot here for Brad. He does. Yep. Get that car out there. Play a Blooming Marsh, pass the turn back. 4 different types in the graveyard right now here for Baugh. That's what the die on top of those cards means, is Baugh will draw a card. Another copy of Aether Hub. Playing a Forest, playing a Sigarda, passing the turn back.
And I was not thrilled from Baugh's side with the draw of the second Sigarda, but now potentially very good as he can trade with the Fleet Wheel Cruiser and then have a second Sigarda as backup.
Yep, there's the attack with the Cruiser. See if Baugh wants to offer up a trade here or not. It looks like Baugh happy to take the damage. We head back over to Jacob now as he falls to 15. Jacob will draw. We know he's got a backup Sigarda in hand, but more importantly, he's got mana to actually work with Sigarda now.
I was a little surprised to see him not take the block there, maybe out of respect for Blossoming Defense.
Grasp of Darkness as well.
Grasp it, yep, another fine choice. But with the second one in hand and a high life total, I'm happy just to see what's going on. And there's a chance it's nothing.
That's totally fair. There's a Vessel. Pass the turn back. Going over to Nelson. Can Nelson overcome the powerful flyer with some of his vehicles here?
Although the other side of that, and maybe Baugh's reasoning, is Nelson cannot kill a Sigarda unless it's involved in combat. Or he needs to have 2 copies of Grasp or something like that. But there are no murders in this list. No Ruinous Paths. So Baugh's aware of that. They have each other's deck lists.
Virtuous Gearhawk. That's the plan here for Nelson now. Perhaps he's thinking 8-8 Trampler. And he is. He'll use that new 8-8 Trampler to turn on the 5-3 Fleet Wheel Cruiser. Coming on in. Baugh will play Kozilek's Return. That will resolve. Now he will make a human and look to block. Nelson has a Grasp. That's his last card. So now 5 damage is going to come across. Baugh's going to fall down to 10.
And Nelson right now getting a lot of work out of these trampling threats too.
And it's not particularly easy for Baugh to be able to handle the 8-8 Trampler in a Virtuous Gearhawk.
I know one good way in his list.
What's that?
It is to take Nelson's turn.
Okay, go on.
And then also have a 13-13.
I see.
That's a good starting point.
Well, it seems unlikely that kind of card would exist.
Right. And certainly, if a card like that did exist, it would be 10 or 11 mana.
I imagine
right?
more than that.
Maybe even more.
Yeah, I imagine much more than that. Here's a Vessel of Nascency activation. Game Trail, Ishkana, and Evolving Wilds. 4 different types in the graveyard here. So Delirium online.
Fleet Wheel Cruiser doing some serious work in the post board game.
Pretty good right now. Ishkana is the weapon of choice here for Jacob Baugh.
It makes me question if Baugh is supposed to leave Chandras in his deck. That lines up so badly.
Yes. Let's make it 6 types now in the graveyard. this hypothetical 13/13
Right. Imaginary
Mindslaver,
card.
imaginary card might only cost 7 now.
You know, if such a design were to reference card types in the graveyard
Yes.
for, whatever reason.
Ooh, okay. So, a slight game state error took place in which the human that Jacob made with Sigarda should have had hexproof when Brad grasped it. This is you and humans you control have hexproof, and it does make a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. Both players missed it.
And also, I believe Baugh's Sigarda in play, not in English. Probably not helping matters here.
That appears to be the case. Because, of course, on both players, know the text of the cards. I don't think anything malicious was being done there, but both players clearly missed it, and I don't know if it's a situation where we can go back or not. So we have our head judge in Jared Silva, and other judges here in Patrick Vorboker and Ward Warren on the floor. Likely making a decision in this case, but that was missed by both the players and actually us here in the booth as well.
Yeah, I do not see a whole lot of removal spells pointed at 1/1 tokens, so
Yeah.
this is not something that has come up a lot from my end.
And there you do see the judges discussing the situation over.
And I mean, that's obviously a big one in this spot, too.
Of course.
I mean, there was a cast Kozilek's return and a Fleet Wheel Cruiser still in play.
Yes.
So this is...
Well, to note, the Kozilek's return was cast first, and then Baugh made the token.
No, yeah.
So that would the Kozilek's return would still be gone.
Right.
So the Kozilek's return would be gone. Brad would actually still have the grasp.
Just speaking to the resources that
Of course.
that Baugh has exchanged here.
Of course. Brad, of course, would no longer have the Fleet Wheel Cruiser. He would have an 8/8 Virtuous Gearhawk, which certainly does matter. But they'll talk about some things, and while they do that, we'll bring it back to the booth here for you guys, and we'll analyze some things here for you. Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan. And when we, of course, do have an update on what Jared Silva and the rest of his team's ruling is, we will let you know in regards to winding back gameplay or anything of that nature. Looks to just be an honest mistake between both players who did miss that. I am surprised, though, in our backup match, one, that we didn't have time to jump that way, because now would be a perfect time to do so, but two, that Jeff Hoagland lost and lost quickly.
Yes. I mean, we didn't get to, not a whole lot of information for us to extrapolate as we didn't get to watch the games, but that is a bit of an upset, both in terms of the outcome and the speed with which it happened.
And especially for what Jeff was trying to accomplish. You can go to our coverage page over at StarCityGames.com to take a look at all the deck lists from this tournament, Modern, Legacy, and Standard, which is where we are at right now. And for Jeff's deck list, which we have in front of us, I mean, we're talking 3 main deck negates, 2 revolutionary rebuffs, 4 main deck void shatters, 2 summary dismissals. It was very clear what he was trying to beat here this weekend. And I can't forget about the 3 torrential Gearhawks as well. And no good.
Yep, there is no way that Jeff was anticipating a metagame full of human strategies or other beatdown decks. He was definitely gunning for Aethworks Marvel. Had to be happy with the pairing that he got.
You would think so.
With Caleb, but just didn't happen.
Yeah, 2 ceremonious rejections in the sideboard, another copy negate, 2 more summary dismissals. He built a blue-red deck, in my opinion, and you talked about this up front before we started the quarterfinals, to really just prey on Marvel decks, and that might just be it.
Yep.
So it's interesting to me that just things didn't pan out. We did have text coverage of that match done by Nick Moo that you can certainly go back and read over on our coverage page as well. Sometimes it just doesn't work out in matchups like that. And you bring all the counterspells to the table, maybe flood it out a little bit. Again, it's unclear because we ourselves didn't get to watch the match, but the result is still surprising to me.
Well, I mean, people talk about 60-40 matchups and 70-30 matchups, and there was an instinct at times to round 60s and 70s up to 100 and round 40s and 30s down to 0.
Yes.
And that is not the way that numbers work.
No, no, it is not. So for Caleb Shearer, he is again playing Teamer Aetherworks here this weekend. Looks a lot like what Andrew Jessup and Jim Davis are up to this weekend, honestly. Not the Naya build that we've seen with Jacob Baugh that has Nahiri and Sigarda in it, but the blue splashes, of course, for the counterspells and dispels and negates. That's typically what they splash for. And then Whirler Virtuoso in the main deck as well as a way to kind of go about using the energy. So Caleb is moving on, and this is just an improvement on where he got last year. Last year he made it to day 2 and lost in the quarterfinals. This year he moves to the semifinals, and for a player who didn't have the best of years in 2016 in regards to just notable finishes outside of that invitational win in Las Vegas at the end of last year, which counted towards this year, pretty telling weekend for him.
Yeah, very light resume for Caleb throughout 2016. Got here essentially on the back of that invitational win in Las Vegas at the back of 2015. No open top 8s in 2016. Did some work in the Classics with 5 top 8s and a win. But basically got here on the back of that performance in 2015. 2016 was a bit of a dry year for him, but qualified for the Players' Championship and has clearly made the most of it so far. In the top 4, locked for $4,000 at the minimum, and still in contention for the title.
And we know for him, he plays decks that he's very familiar with. Storm in Legacy here this weekend, of course, because he always plays that deck in every single Legacy event he plays in. Dredge in Modern, which he had a fantastic finish with, and now for Standard, it is Team Aetherworks. He's got to win another match with this to work himself to the finals, and then, of course, we'll have our all-format finals that we had last year that so many people enjoyed. So it's an impressive tournament here for Caleb, I got to say. I know he wasn't a high pick going in regards to, I think, how people felt he was going to finish and who was going to win this tournament, but he's proven some people wrong.
And, it's probably a good spot for Caleb in Standard right now with Aetherworks Marvel being as powerful as it is and probably being the top deck in the format. He clearly has a bias towards playing if not combo decks and at least unorthodox decks. He's not someone I think who's totally comfortable or happy just attacking and blocking with good rated creatures. And you just look at his deck selection here with Storm and Legacy, no surprise there, Dredge and Modern, and Aetherworks Marvel. So he was basically able to touch combo or combo feeling decks in both formats, all 3 formats.
Well, we are going to head back down to the match right now, just so that you are aware, and we did a full backup. So we'll explain this here very quickly, which is they did a full backup. Sigarda died to the Grasp because Kozilek's Return resolved. So 2 damage was on Sigarda from Kozilek's Return. Grasp takes care of that. The Human and the Fleetwheel Cruiser, they trade. And then they undid the Vessel of Nascency and shuffled the cards back in. So able to keep the integrity of the game as best as possible, which is good given the situation.
And I think that line of play might have even just been better.
Totally fair. Totally fair. But now with...
I don't know, this board looks better for Brad than the last
Brad doesn't know about the other Sigarda in hand for Jacob.
That's true.
But sure.
Yeah.
I can get on board with what you're saying. So good to see these players able to resolve the entire situation and get some randomization back into the Vessel by reshuffling those cards and all that stuff. And now we continue play in a very high leverage situation and a very important game for Brad Nelson, as if he loses this one, he's out of the tournament. So Jacob Baugh will jump back into this game, try to refocus his attention on things. Again, he still has that Vessel. 3 energy at this stage. Facing down an 8/8 Virtuous Gearhawk. A couple hissing Quagmires over there for Nelson as well. But Nelson is empty-handed at this stage.
And large threats with Trample are a bit of a weakness for Aetherworks strategies. They are trying to stabilize way more through blocking or use of Planeswalkers than with removal spells. And Virtuous Gearhawk is just really big. That is a really big card.
Another Sigarda and a Vessel. Nelson will just draw and play a land. And so now he's reaching for those creature lands. He can activate them both. They both have Death Touch. And then, of course, there's the Trampler. So Sigarda's going to trade with Hissing Quagmire, I believe. Yeah, and Jacob is at 11 because the Human did block, so he gained a little bit of life in that exchange. Trample, deal 4 damage from the Fleetwheel Cruiser. So we're on the up and up for the game state. And while drawing a land there for Nelson isn't the best draw in the entire world, well, it allowed him to fire both Quagmires, so not too bad.
Yeah, that's the value of creature lands. You get to game states pretty regularly where spells are good and lands are good.
Ball falls down to 1, and he will draw a card. Is there a way for him to stay alive here? 2 Vessels out there, 6 lands. Has access to all the colors.
Ishkana gets him a turn, I believe. But not much more than that.
Didn't get a great look at what Baugh drew in this situation. And he's picking up the lands and the vessels, so he is all done here. Brad Nelson going to tie things up here against Jacob Baugh. Green-black aggro, Naya Aetherworks. Getting ready here for game number 3. Some brief complications in the game state there. And now Brad is going to do Brad Nelson things if you've watched the Brad Nelson feature match.
Gather
And go use the restroom
here.
and gather himself.
You know, wasn't a great look. Like I said, I think grasping the Sigarda is kind of better anyway, or looked that way, and has the benefit of being legal. So this all worked out pretty well, I would say, on the balance. But you know, that's a shaky spot, and when that call gets made, I mean, I've been there before. You just don't know what the resolution is going to be.
Sure.
And to come that far and be in a spot where the judges then have to adjudicate what the punishment is, if anything, very, very stressful spot. And then Brad still has to win the game after that.
Take a look at the sideboards here one more time. Jacob going to be on the play here for game number 3. Do you think anything changes for Jacob now that he knows the Fleetwheel Cruisers and the Transgressors are here?
That I don't think can be much of a surprise. I think the sketchiest cards in his deck are the Planeswalkers, and those cards have to get better on the play. So if he was willing to keep them in there for game number 2, I can't imagine they're coming out.
For Brad, anything here?
Nope. Like I said, the 7 cards that stand out to me are pretty straightforward here. The 4 copies of Transgress and the 2 Fleetwheel Cruisers, both of which were great in that game. And I would bring in the extra copy of Gnarlwood Dryad just as a bit more aggression.
All right, these players will shuffle up. They'll get ready for game number 3. Perhaps they will change their sideboarding a little bit, but we're going to talk about the Season 1 schedule here on the SCG Tour for 2017. We kicked it off with the Atlanta Invitational with some opens and classics there. And, of course, Jacob Baugh won that tournament. The Aether Revolt release weekend will be Columbus. Patrick and I will be there for that. And then a little Richmond action.
Yeah, we head over to Richmond for Standard, and then the regional championships, which are Modern, February 4th. You can head over to go.starcitygames.com/regionals for more information about that event. Then a team open in Baltimore. Cannot wait for that. Modern Indianapolis, Modern in Dallas, Legacy in Worcester, Massachusetts towards the beginning of April. Then we head to Atlanta for Standard, Standard in Louisville, Modern in Baltimore, Modern in Charlotte, and then the Season 1 Invitational June 30th through July 2nd. Modern and Standard as the invitational formats.
Of course, we do have playmats attached to all of our opens and classics. So if you play in a Standard Open or Classic, you will get the very beautiful Smuggler's Copter, which Brad Nelson is trying to win his match with right now. If you do play a little Modern action, we'll see if we can get you a little Aether Vial action here, a Kaldis Masterpiece. And then, last but certainly not least, for you Legacy fans out there, perhaps you like a little gamble playmat for playing in our Legacy Opens or Classics. Again, remember, if you do play any of our Legacy Open Classics or any format Classic, you will get Standard, Modern, or Legacy playmat free and exclusive just for joining the tournament. So we hope to see you guys during Season 1 of the SCG Tour all year long, including that Invitational in Roanoke during the summer, which should be an absolute blast. I imagine we'll see Brad Nelson and Jacob Baugh there. They've had a lot of success in Invitationals. Both Invitational champions now. Brad Nelson, he won one a few years ago in Indianapolis. For Jacob Baugh, he won one just a few weeks ago in Atlanta, which will be sending him to the Pro Tour and a whole bunch more. But for now, as these players sideboard, things get a little bit interesting. Jacob's hand, not all that great last game. Not terribly functional. Got off to a pretty decent start. The Chandra was not even a card because of the Fleetwheel Cruiser. And then Nelson was able to just kind of overcome the Sigarda. But truth be told, Nelson Shaw wasn't great either.
No, but Baugh was trying to kind of play straight up Magic that game, and you know, Nelson's going to do that a whole lot better. The curve of Sigarda, Chandra into Sigarda is not a deck for a reason. I mean, the Chandras are there to facilitate other things in the deck. They're part of the raw power and the mana acceleration and the card selection. Sigarda's in there more as a metagame bullet and so forth, but there's a reason that curve is not a standard deck outside of this.
Sure.
You're not beating a whole lot of things curving that 4 to 5. And even with Nelson Straw being a little bit on the soft side, Transgress took care of the Tireless Tracker, and then Baugh just had some weird pieces to try to cobble together.
Caleb Scherer, he tweeted out after his win about 15 minutes ago, initial goal accomplished, have made it farther than last year. Now to wait on my semifinals versus Jacob Baugh or Brad Nelson. So he is pumped up. And these players, again, have access to each other's deck lists, so get a good look exactly what each one of them is working with. And this is kind of one of my favorite things about Magic is when tournaments get like this, obviously high leverage spots, both players really want to win, and there's a lot on the line. So they're double, triple checking and getting ready to rock and roll.
Yes. And I have a lot of respect for Brad in these kind of spots too. I think, and I talked about this on the pregame. He's just kind of built, I think, experience-wise and psychologically for matches like this. High leverage stuff, single elimination, cameras on. It's part of the reason I picked him to win this whole event. I think he's just prepared for these kind of matches more than the other competitors in the field.
Well, as these players go back and forth a little bit more with the shuffling and the sideboarding here, we will talk about a new promotion of Star City Games. It is our Versus Series playmats. We announced these on Friday. So, of course, a lot of people do watch the Versus Series with Michael Majors and Ross Merriam, Brad Nelson, Todd Anderson, Tom Ross, sometimes Jerry Thompson, some other faces pop in every now and again. And now you can get your Versus Series 2-player playmat over at go.starcitygames.com/Versus playmats. Do want to thank everybody who does watch the Versus Series over on Star City Games Premium and our YouTube channel for supporting the series. It's been a lot of fun over the past almost half decade now putting these things together. And we're going to have some more verses coming down the pipeline, various different types, and some changes to that current product. So for now, enjoy those 2-player playmats and get ready here for game number 3 between Brad Nelson and Jacob Baugh. And if you have to pick a winner right now with Baugh on the play, who do you pick?
I would take Baugh.
Yeah?
Slightly. I mean, my reason for picking Nelson in this matchup is primarily the die roll. I think this is the type of matchup that's within the margin of error, and being on the play is a huge deal. So Baugh having the play for game number 3, I think puts him slightly ahead. You and I, we got to put out one of those versus videos one of these days.
Oh, no, I don't know if they're ready for that. I don't know if you're ready for that. That's all I'm going to say.
You don't think I'm ready?
I might not be ready. You might not be ready. It's unclear who's ready. And Joe Lissette sending out a tweet, going to have to play soon. Am nervous.
Okay.
Joe's 3rd SCGPC. He always gets really excited about this tournament, though.
Yes.
This is one of his favorite tournaments of the year.
Well, it's with Joe being out in Orange County, I believe, California, not a trivial exertion for him to qualify for this thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Clearly matters a lot.
Puts in a lot of time and effort, a lot of traveling, as it looks like Jacob Baugh is going to take a mulligan. What do you want to play in our Versus Series video? What format?
You pick.
Oh, really?
Any. We can go anywhere. We can each take 6 Kaladesh boosters and play some sealed.
Okay.
All the way up to dusting off the boxes in the back of the warehouse. You pick. I'm down for all range.
All right, I pick Legacy.
Okay.
All right, you play Burn, I play Belcher.
Okay.
You in?
Definitely. We can get in a lot of games in 45 minutes.
Shortest versus video of all time.
We can get in so many games.
Yeah. Okay. All right, perfect.
We can really go into the nuances of the matchup.
Lock it in.
There's a lot of, a lot of back and forth, a lot of decisions.
Lock it in. We'll record that one tomorrow for everybody. Baugh going to take a look at 6 now. Nelson has kept his 7. And Baugh deciding if he wants to keep this 6 or not. Maybe the most important decision he'll make all weekend long. Remember, he's playing against an aggressive build of green-black, so he knows he's going to be under duress right away, and always has to concern himself with the fact that Brad has Transgress the Mind and Fleetwheel Cruiser in sideboard too.
Yep, and a mulligan to 5 against a deck with Transgress, and that's clocking you. You're probably inclined to keep some sketchy 6-card hands.
Remember, Jacob's deck doesn't have a ton of lands in it, if that's the consideration. He's skimped on lands because he has 4 Attune with Ether and 2 Traverse, the Uvenwald. All right, he's going to keep. Feels a little bit reluctant. Top card to the bottom. Baugh will start with a Game Trail, revealing a forest, pass the turn back. We're going to go over to Nelson. Nelson will play a Hissing Quagmire and pass the turn back. Baugh will draw. Forest, pass, over to Nelson. Nelson will draw. He does have a Smuggler's Copter in hand.
Nelson has really slowed down in the early turns of these games. Turn 4, turn 5 rolls around. His pace of play has picked up considerably, but you can tell he is really deliberate about the way he wants to sequence these early turns.
Honestly, it feels a lot like when we watch him play Death Shadow aggro in Modern. Not a lot of turns to be had in that particular deck, but the turns that he does play, they take him a little while.
Well, that deck is really intense on decision trees and sequencing matter, and I think a lot of it is just a function of sequencing. In this sort of matchup, I think it's just what am I playing around and what is my path for the next 3, 4, 5 turns.
Galvanic Bombardment, the play on the Servant of the Conduit. We head back over to Baugh. He'll play a game trail that enters the battlefield tapped, and we go back over to Brad Nelson. I think the issue right now with Jacob Baugh's hand is he has a lot of lands and an Emrakul. For Nelson, Transgress the Mind. We'll find out right now. Ishkana Emrakul, 2 lands. Goodbye, Spider. I have a feeling Jacob Baugh wants to draw Vessel of Nascency.
That'd be a good
Or
one.
a Planeswalker on an empty board.
Yeah, Nahiri or Chandra would be great right now.
Mm-hmm. Instead, just Servant of the Conduit plus 2 energy. So Nelson fades that draw step. Would have been a huge one there for Baugh.
And you can see there with the sequencing, Nelson was willing to risk a turn 3 Tireless Tracker to get one more shot at snagging a Planeswalker with that Transgress. So Nelson's showing a lot of respect for it there too.
Nelson will draw. Now he's working with basically perfect information at this stage. Just doesn't know what's on top of Baugh's deck, but neither does Jacob. Outside of that, Nelson does have to concern himself with the fact that Emrakul is looming, I guess I'll say, even though it costs 12 right now.
Well, it's also, he's got to insulate himself from Planeswalkers off the top too. That's another one. He wants to get some things going on the battlefield here. So in the event that Baugh rips Chandra or Nahiri, he's able to threaten the Planeswalker at least a little bit.
Nelson will play a Swamp. And now a Grim Flayer, followed up by a Grasp to take care of the Servant of the Conduit. I like killing the Servant because it does cut Baugh off of white mana at this stage, something he does not have access to. So if Sigarda or Nahiri come rolling off the top of the deck, they are uncastable.
Although that sequencing was a little bit odd, because Nelson could have just played the Grasp first and then have Delirium when he casts the Grim Flare. Maybe he was trying to induce some sort of response out of Baugh.
Okay. It's a marvel.
But that was somewhat odd sequencing.
Only 2 energy here for Jacob. Now, Jacob does have a lot of life to work with.
But again, we know he's a ways away from anything good. Aetherworks Marvel with 2 energy, and Emrakul in hand, that's a ways down the line at this point.
To be fair, in regards to the sequencing, Brad knew exactly what Jacob's hand was. So no risk there.
Sure.
You know, Jacob drew and played his card that he drew that Brad didn't see from Transgress with Servant. So still fine. I understand what you're saying, though. Flayer's going to come in here for 4, as it does have Delirium. There's an instant in Grasp of Darkness. A creature in Servant of the Conduit, a land in Evolving Wilds, and a sorcery in Transgress the Mind in the graveyard here for Nelson. Of course, the Flayer does connect, so Nelson will take a look at the top couple of cards and organize them accordingly.
And at this point, with Delirium enabled, there's no other real graveyard considerations. There's no Emrakul on the list here. So Nelson only needs to concern himself with improving the quality of his draw over time.
Couple cards go in the graveyard. Looks like Brad's going to keep 1 card on top. The follow-ups are Gnarlwood Dryad and Smuggler's Copter. And Nelson will pass the turn back. We're going to go to Jacob Baugh. I love a good slow roll. Jeez.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Well,
My goodness. Woodweaver's puzzling that off the top. He will crack this. He's got even more energy, and for someone who had nothing, now he's got a lot going on. And now he'll spin the wheel.
how are you going to slow roll yourself and not slam that puzzle on the table? That's the point, right? You knew that was the card.
Well, I'm going to see if he's going to slow roll himself on this one as he takes a look at the top 6 cards. Chandra's in there. I do not think Emrakul is.
But there is another puzzle knot.
Yes,
so he
there
has
is.
the option of taking Chandra right now, but Chandra I don't think is worth a whole lot. I mean, it is a removal spell. I don't know if that's a big path towards anything. Or you can say, I need to go for a home run here. Just take the puzzle knot, go again next
I
turn.
like taking the puzzle knot and going again because it also brings him up to 25.
Yep. And it sets the stage for him to be almost ready to go again.
Yeah.
You know, he'll have a spare energy after the activation, so then he only needs a servant and a conduit or an attune the Aether. He's back at 6. Spin those dice again. And you pick up 6 life for your trouble, too. Yeah.
Let's do it again, huh? I want to do it again. Do it again. The dynamic of this game has changed, my friend.
Well, and Nelson's not really equipped to get this off the battlefield, so
Nope.
he's just got to hope for some whiffs.
He has to kill him fast. Nelson will draw. Now it's on Brad to figure out, okay, how's the fastest way for me to do this? Because at this stage, if he hits with Marvel, there's not a lot you can do. I think it's about shortening the game, clocking Jacob as much as possible. Need something like a Gearhawk or a Fleet Wheel Cruiser.
Well, you can also try to set this up in such a way that the Emrakul is only worth kill your best creature.
Okay.
Still a lot, but there could be some way for Nelson to manage his threats and manage what he leaves on top of the Grimflayer and manage what he loses away with the Smuggler's Copter. So even in the event that Baugh hits Emrakul, it's bad, but it's not necessarily disaster.
Okay. Remember that Jacob does have Emrakul in hand. We can't forget about that. Again, a little ways away from casting, but we do know that this Nigh Aetherworks deck, it does generate a little bit more mana than it appears on the surface. All right, Catacomb Sifter. Bringing Eldrazi Sign along with it. That'll allow Nelson to crew the Copter. What else are we thinking? Nelson going to play Swamp. That's his land for the turn. He'll scry, leave the top card on top. This will allow him to activate the Quagmire. And again, this is about him just getting this game over with.
And also the Scion is potentially a destructive thing to leave in play anyway in the event that he gets Emrakul. So he gets a scry for his trouble and essentially 2 damage.
That's an attack for 12, by the way.
I mean, he's putting as much pressure as he can on Baugh to hit Emrakul right now.
Got to win this game quick.
And Baugh doesn't even have Delirium right now, so Nishkana is no good.
Nelson trying to figure out exactly how he wants to stack things with the Grimflayer. Some might go to the graveyard, some might stay on top of the deck. He had the same decision last turn, but most importantly here at this stage, he's done a nice job of trying to shorten the game.
Yes.
He can present lethal next turn or something very close to it, and I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, the Puzzle Knot pulls Baugh up to 16. But this is still, you know, Baugh has nothing going on right now besides the Aetherworks Marvel. So Nelson, if he goes wide enough, isn't even necessarily beat by the Emrakul. But now there's a lot of pressure on Nelson here. The challenge with this Grimflayer is make sure that I find something good to do in the event that Baugh doesn't have Emrakul, while not leaving something on top of my deck that's really destructive in the event that he does have Emrakul. Not working with a lot of information there, but I'm a little interested to see him mill over the Transgress, just because that's kind of the best of both worlds. If Baugh doesn't have it, the Transgress is fine, and if he Emrakul's him, Transgress is a dead draw in terms of negatively impacting Nelson.
Sure. Because if the draw subs transgress, it's not a punishment.
Right. It's not. Yeah. It's not a removal spell. It's not something that's.
Baugh will draw an Aether Hub.
But again, I'm not working with enough information and all of the variables going on in Nelson's head here.
Spin to win for Jacob Baugh. He did this pretty well in Atlanta. I think I saw Emrakul. I think I see Emrakul. It's the first card.
Yup.
Rawr. He might be thinking something else. A little bit of math. Is there any other option?
Baugh has the same thing going on in his head, that I was mentioning. Emrakul is fine here, and probably the most impactful thing, but it's not great. It's not lights out. It's a removal spell and a large creature left over.
Hub. Gets Jacob an energy. And pass.
Really interested to see what Brad left on top of the deck here.
Me too. Traverse. Which had Delirium, which could have found Gearhulk.
So that's an even better card to leave on top, because if Nelson gets Mindslavered, it's just a fail to find, not the end of the world.
Yep.
And it's game over if Baugh doesn't have Emrakul.
Yep.
So that's better than leaving Transgress on top. A lot of the same philosophy, but...
Jacob's looking through his deck. Is there an Nantuko Husk in here? Any way I can get something like make you sacrifice all your creatures? The answer is no. This does feel winnable for Brad. I mean, it seems real tough, but it does strike me as winnable. He's going to need to have a lot go right, but it can happen.
Having access to some Death Touch attackers, very nice here. Next turn, he will have the opportunity to, at the minimum, swing in with the Hissing Quagmire and the Gnarlwood Dryad pretty safely.
Mm-hmm.
He is not killed in one hit by Emrakul on the way back.
Mm-hmm. Those are all benefits. Emrakul probably going to eat Grimflayer. Maybe crew the Copter and eat that.
I'm not sure if I like the... I think he has to get rid of the Grimflayer. The problem with the Copter is Nelson's plan is to go wide. He has to go around Emrakul at this point, and Smuggler's Copter requires one of his creatures to tap anyway to become an attacker.
Okay.
So that's just not an efficient allocation of Nelson's resources right now.
Catacomb Sifter, because the Grimflayer died, is why Jacob is scrying for Brad. And I'd love to know what this card is.
Yeah.
And we'll find out when Brad draws it next turn. And again, Jacob's last card in hand is a copy of Emrakul. He can sacrifice the Puzzle Knot to get 4 more energy. That would bring him up to 5. But for now, all he can do is pass the turn back. Nelson will untap. He'll draw. I can't wait to see what it's going to be.
Trying to think what card would be close here.
Mm-hmm. Close enough to make Jacob think about it.
I think Blossoming Defense is close. That's a close call here.
Okay.
Like, what's shock worth in this spot?
Okay.
It's close. I think he has to scry to the bottom any creature.
Yes.
At this point.
Yes.
Any creature is good for Nelson. Some are better than others, but they're all good.
It lets him just keep doing his thing.
Yeah, he has, he can try to chip shot away, to the extent that you can chip shot away in a game that's this tight with his Death Touch creatures, and then hope to get Baugh low enough to go wide with everything.
Well, Nelson's tapping mana. So what do we have here? Perhaps the Quagmire.
What's interesting here is if Nelson fires up his Death Touch creatures and attacks, it's defensible for Baugh to just block. That puts him up to 2 energy. The Puzzle Knot dies at 6.
Yeah, no.
And you just go again.
It's totally in play. And you have an Emrakul in your hand that you can work towards casting.
Right.
Yeah, it's totally in play. And also, just because of how Marvel works, there's a real chance that he could just hit something again. Like, he could miss and just get to go again. Like, that's all in play, too. And remember, Baugh right now is at a virtual 16. I know it says 13, but he hasn't cracked the Puzzle Knot yet, so...
Because if, let's say Baugh just takes the 5 points of Death Touch that Nelson can put together here and falls to 8, sacrifices the Puzzle Knot. If he misses Baugh on his draw, if he draws nothing that generates energy or impacts the board in some other way, he might not be able to attack with Emrakul. So he might be able to hedge his risks a little bit by just blocking right now, getting up to 6 energy, and going again.
Decisions. I'm sure they're going to make him make a decision here in just a moment.
It's not common that this matchup turns into a damage race, but that's what's happened here.
Yep.
And Nelson has not that much room for error.
All right, he's reaching towards Hissing Quagmire. Looks like he might be crewing the Copter. Again, what's so unique about this situation is, well, he doesn't know if he wants to do that. He's going to crew the Copter. Maybe. What's interesting about this, what I was going to finish my sentence, is Jacob knows the card in Brad's hand. Brad knows the card in Brad's hand.
We do not.
We do not. Clearly, it's giving him some pause about what to do. And Brad knows the card in Jacob's hand.
The thing is, the only reason to attack with the Smuggler's Copter right now, because it's a free block for the Emrakul,
A quick block.
is if you're interested in looting. And Nelson could just plan on looting with the Copter on defense and chump off the Emrakul. So if the only incentive is looting, he can do that anyway. And Baugh took the line that I thought he might, which is just
Snap off a block.
just block, Aetherworks Marvel again, trade off, and just keep humming along here. It's not like Nelson is putting all the pressure in the world into him right now. I like this play from Baugh. I think it's a good hedge against him. If he just draws if he doesn't block and then just draws a basic land on his draw step, suddenly it's, all right, well, I can try to race and die to anything, or now I had to block this turn. Neither one's great. I think Baugh's position at this point is good enough that he can afford to be a little bit more conservative.
I think Baugh actually just pointed out Nelson's scry here. Catacomb Sifter. Put the top card to the bottom. Now Jacob's going to quickly sacrifice his Puzzle Knot, go up to 6 energy, and draw a card. Forest is the draw.
Yep, great hedge. I mean, he would have been stuck
Yep.
with that draw step if he had not blocked with the Emrakul this turn.
Yep. All right. One more time. Out of energy and taking a look at 6 cards. How does he do? Remember, right now, Emrakul costs 10 for Jacob Baugh. Ishkana is their creature, artifact, instant.
Yeah, I do not think he has Delirium.
He has World Breaker, though, to take care of the Copter. World Breaker will play here.
Definitely.
World Breaker will play. Does he
Although-
want to?
yeah.
Yeah, I like Quagmire more.
Yeah, the Death Touch threats are the most obnoxious ones. right
Yeah,
now.
I like Quagmire more. He's going to take care of that. I like that a lot more by Jacob Baugh. Baugh will play a Forest. Because the 5/7 reach, the World Breaker, that's taking care of Copter all by itself, at least at this stage.
And now Brad really needs Virtuous Gearhulk.
Oh, yeah.
You can get that copter up to a 7/7, and he's good again.
He'll crew the copter, attack with the copter, trigger, draw. Nelson will be discarding here momentarily. Discard a forest.
Could be grasp.
Yeah. Nope.
Could be nothing.
Scry, bottom. Is there a follow-up? There needs to be. Okay. Servant and copter.
Yep, that's a fine reason for Nelson to make that attack. If he hits grasps, he's in great shape, and even if not, you know, the second copter is not doing a ton for him there.
We're in a weird spot right now if you're Jacob Baugh because lands are pretty good because he has the Emrakul in hand, and spells are good for very obvious reasons.
Yep. And he's got a lot of life to play with, too.
Yeah.
And he can also kind of manage it the other way, too, where if something happens to World Breaker, he can just get it back.
Mm-hmm. And if World Breaker dies, he gets an energy counter. If he sacrifices the land to get World Breaker back, that's another energy counter.
Yep.
So he can come a couple different ways.
It's essentially net neutral with in terms of casting Emrakul because he doesn't have a land in the graveyard just yet.
Nelson will crew the copter with the Catacomb Sifter. He's going to serve in here with the Servant and the copter. Looks like those two are going to come in. There will be a trigger here from the copter. Time for Nelson to draw and discard. He will discard a dead weight, aptly named. He will block the Servant.
Taking a slightly conservative block there, not playing into grasp.
Uh-huh. Interesting. Scrying now is Nelson from the Catacomb Sifter trigger. Top card. Where will it go? What a game 3 between these two. It's going to go to the bottom. And Nelson can only pass.
I think I would have blocked the Smuggler's Copter there. Because if Nelson even has spiked the grasp, which is his best case scenario, it's not even that bad for you. He's empty-handed and you get your World Breaker back.
Sure. Sure. I can see that. World Breaker then takes care of the copter. Remember, Jacob Baugh right now with Emrakul in hand, it costs 10. Traverse. That's the 4th card type. Okay. Get a basic plains, which means he can hardcast Emrakul next turn. 13 minus 4 is 9, of course, and the plains is the 9th source of mana here for Jacob Baugh.
And Nelson is not coming back from...
Not another Emrakul. There's no way. Play it and pass. What's Brad's best draw here? Is there one?
he doesn't have Terminates in his deck. I mean, the best draw has to be Virtuous Gearhulk.
That's my
I don't
assumption.
know if it's even remotely good enough now, but he's not drawing to more powerful cards than that.
Nelson going to survey the battlefield. And I just don't know if he's got a way out of this with Emrakul looming. Emrakul is sitting in Jacob Baugh's hand since the first turn of the game. Made him think a long time about mulliganing his hand, which appeared to just have lands. And an Emrakul. Did
On
not
six
get off
cards.
on 6 cards.
On
Did
six
not get off to a
cards.
great start this game. Galvanic Bombardment, I believe, was involved as well to be able to buy himself a little bit of time. It did kill a servant of the conduit, so it did its job. And now he's just trying to hold on at 11 with an Emrakul coming next turn. Unless Nelson has drawn Transgress, which I think he would have cast by now, personally.
And even if, I mean, there's still what's the long-term plan here?
Now, it is worth noting, Catacomb Sifter could turn on the Copter. And he could spike a Transgress off the draw if he hasn't drawn one for his turn. Time for Nelson to discard here in just a moment.
This is the problem. Even if he hits Transgress here, he's beat on the board and on the hand. And he can only draw a card to clean up one of the two. Grasp cleans up the board a little bit. Transgress cleans up the hand, but he's got to be able to beat both.
See what Nelson discards here in just a moment. 70 minutes into this match. It's been a great one between these two. Two invitational champions, Baugh the most recent. Really duking it out. Force the discard. Worldbreaker will block the Copter. Scry. That top card.
Remember, he knows he's getting Emrakul next turn, so he can't leave anything destructive on top of the deck.
Top card becomes the bottom card. This is a dead weight. Well, that's how you know you're getting Emrakul. And now Nelson will pass the turn back over to Baugh. Baugh's going to draw, but I think his turn, we all know what's coming. And he's drawn another land, has Jacob. But it's about as straightforward as it gets, folks. It's time for Emrakul yet again. Trigger means that Jacob Baugh will control Brad Nelson's turn. And I think Jacob just kind of curious if he's going to attack with Worldbreaker or not this turn, since it's somewhat of a free.
Yeah.
Get in those 3 points of damage, bring Nelson down to 17, and then take his turn.
Like the attack.
It's Patrick approved. Nelson quite naturally draws Transgress the Mind this turn to go along with his Gear Hulk. He will transgress himself to lose the Gear Hulk.
Different story every time.
Catacomb Sifter will die. And now it's Brad's turn. He will draw, and that will do it. Jacob Baugh is going to win this match here over Brad Nelson, 2-1. Nia Aetherworks will take care of Green-Black aggro. For Baugh, he moves on to the semifinals to play against Caleb Shear.